So if you actually understand this politically, the political and historical circumstances that motivate the transition movement have resulted in what I think is a pretty cosmopolitan definition of resilience, which focuses not just on adaptation but systemic renewal. And in this way, I think what it does is call attention to larger relationships of power that are created and sustained through dominant, often neoliberal economic discourses that are predicated on growth and energy consumption. Right? So developing resilience for this movement involves starting by formulating a steady state economy that is focused on establishing economic security that is equitable within the capacity of the ecosystem to provide that equity. Right? So it starts with the ecosystem first. So in this way, this movement is drawn into broader resistance against prevailing discourses of austerity and disaster capitalism, which defined financial resources in terms of scarcity and ecological resources in terms of plenitude, as plentiful. Right? In the transition movement inverts this relationship and treats finance as plentiful and scarcity as ecological. Okay, so human capacity in terms of the capacity for creativity is unbounded, whereas environmental capital is treated as finite. So that's a pretty radical inversion. Right? And in addition to challenging this kind of economic model, it also challenges popular opinions that, and for those of us who study communication, this is crucial, it challenges popular opinions that cast environmental consciousness as naysaying. Right? So when you ask a citizen who's accustomed to the consumption pattern of capitalism to rethink their assumptions about growth, modify their lifestyle, it's likely to be completely dismissed out of defensiveness and fear. And most people see environmentalists as naysayers, right? People who are party poopers, who want to stop consumption, right? But what this does, this movement, I think, is interestingly, it appropriates positive discourse itself as a means to go beyond this problem and places very optimistic attention onto what the future might look like. Right? So as the handbook says, it's one thing to campaign against climate change and quite another to paint a compelling and engaging vision of a post-carbon world in such a way as to enthuse others to embark on a journey towards it. Right? So building resilience is not framed in terms of sacrifice or in terms of loss, but it's framed in terms of creating a livable future that focuses on developing human happiness through meaningful relationships, through a sense of purpose, through environmental harmony, rather than the accumulation of material goods. Right, so that I think is sort of the discursive potential of this movement. So I'm going to move on to. I've got about 20 minutes left, which is sort of appropriate time, I think, before we sort of open up the floor for discussion. But what I thought I would do is talk more about one particularly successful. Sorry, I'm one slide behind. One particularly successful transition initiative, because it helps build the idea that resilience in the movement is more than just interaction. It's more than just adaptation. And this case to which I'm going to talk about was an initiative on time banking developed by Project Littleton, which is situated in the small town of the same name, which serves as the port for the city of Christchurch in New Zealand's South Island. This is a small town of 3,000 people, and in a few short years, this project became nationally prominent, not just because of its highly successful time bank, which I'm talking about, but also because of its highly participative organizing, which was explicitly grounded in principles of appreciative inquiry, where individual projects, for example, were only started when people in the community stepped up to be their champions. So the project has initiatives ranging from there's a slow food initiative, there's an organic farm, there's a local produce market, there is a film festival, there is a nationally prominent now local arts festival, and there is the time bank. There's also some political lobbying that the project is engaged in, most notably ensuring that the Port of Littleton engages in really stringent environmental controls on ships that get to enter the port in the first place, which is, I think, sort of a pretty big deal economically, because, I mean, actually saying that ships will not enter the city of Christchurch unless they meet these standards, and they may not be international standards, but there are standards, is really significant. right? So the Time Bank was initiated by the project's founder, Margaret Jeffries, who was at the time, um, that's Littleton right there, and you can see the port. At the time, Margaret Jeffries said that she was searching for ways uh, to, to keep value in the community. So what she did was attend a training program in Ithaca, where really sort of the time banking uh, um, concept was invented, and she came back to try and develop it in Christchurch. And what a time bank is, for those of you who don't know, is it's a very innovative alternative economy that preserves value in a local community, because it's based on a system of exchange where people donate a number of hours of service involving a particular skill they possess, be it carpentry, editing, beekeeping, or computer repairs.